Hey there, hope you're doing good. Today we'll talk about how to insource. Let's say you outsourced your software development to an agency and you feel the time has come to move it in house. How should you go about it? The first thing you should think about is whether insourcing or outsourcing is right for you. I made a separate video about it, which I'll link in the description. Should you outsource or build software in house? That's the first thing we should be clear about, right? Because before we make a change, we need to make sure that the destination we are going towards is the right destination for us. Once you have validated that, you should recognize that you will lose a lot of time in changing engineering teams. Engineers take 2 quarters to ramp up and be fully productive. I'm not saying they'll do nothing for 2 quarters, I'm saying they'll be partially productive. They'll deliver some work. Even if an engineer knows the stack very well, like you hire an iOS engineer, somebody who's a really good iOS engineer to work on an iOS project, there is ramp up involved in that particular code. He has worked with different code in the past. And sometimes you don't have people who have the exact fit of skills. If you're using Rails for your backend, you may get a backend engineer who knows Node. And given the market and how hard it is to hire, hiring that person may be the right choice, but then that results in a longer ramp up time. So there's two types of ramp up regarding a particular framework and ramp up regarding a particular code. These are costs you'll have to pay. Sometimes founders shake their head and say, no, people should be productive. I understand the desire, everyone wants that, but saying it isn't going to make it happen. The price will be paid, whether you recognize it or not. Sometimes it's a hidden cost. Feature delivery is just slow for a while. You may not know why it's slow. This is the reason in this scenario. So, given the cost in switching teams, you need to be extra sure that that's the right decision. This applies whether you're switching from one agency to another, whether you're switching from one developer to another within the same agency. Agencies often hide this from you, but you are paying the price again at the end of the day. If the developers working on your project move on to another project, say because of a gap in your project, or you didn't confirm ahead of time, whatever the reason may be, right? So it could be changing engineers within an agency, it could be changing agencies, it could be insourcing, replacing an agency with an in-house team, it could be replacing an in-house team with an agency, or it could be even in an in-house situation if you decide to let your engineers go and hire new ones. In all these cases, you will pay this price. That's the first point. I was talking to a founder who first outsourced, then insourced, then outsourced, and is again considering insourcing now. It's not surprising that his engineering progress has been slow. So don't do that. Second point is you should have an overlap between the new team and the old team. Have them work shoulder to shoulder for a quarter. And in that quarter, ease up on feature delivery. Or it could be a month. If it is a month, completely stop feature delivery in that month. Tell them the only purpose is to transition. Have the new engineers pair program with the old ones sitting next to each other, either physically or virtually. Some people believe that pair programming is a good technique even otherwise, but it's especially helpful when you are transitioning from one team to another. Ask the old engineers to document the code. As much of documentation as possible should be in the code. Anything that is surprising should be mentioned as a comment. Any improvements that need to be made, a to-do should be put in the code. If any class is named wrong, again, that needs to be captured. They should conduct a series of tech talks on various aspects of the architecture. And all of these should be recorded for newcomers to the team and put on a company Google Drive or something. As much documentation as possible should be in the code, but some of it may be in a Google Doc or a diagram or something like that. The main drawbacks of the code should be communicated to the new team. Again, that's not necessarily a reflection on the competence of the old team. It may just be a question of time, right? So people need to be made to feel comfortable that, hey, this is not about you personally. It's just about the company. All this needs to happen. So there needs to be an overlap. It shouldn't be that the old team is working until Jan 1st and the new team is working from Jan 2nd. That's you're going to do a slower ramp up. If you say, no, I don't have a month to waste, you'll be wasting 2 months by doing it inefficiently. The ramp up is going to happen anyway. The only question is whether you do it efficiently by having the new engineers learn from the old ones, or inefficiently by having them rediscover everything. So to summarize, first you need to make sure before insourcing that insourcing is the right thing to do and that it is going to have a short-term cost of a quarter or two for a long-term benefit. Second, you need to have an overlap between the old team and the new team. Third, in the overlap period, at least for a month, the focus should not be on feature delivery, it should be on ramping up. Actually, you should be documenting the code as you go along. TODOs should be there. Google Docs should be created when needed. Code should be continuously refactored. Minimum coding standards should be maintained. These are all things you should be doing. But if you haven't done them, better late than never. Better to do it when the transition happens than not doing it at all. And some of this applies even if you have an individual engineer leaving. So if one of your engineers has handed in his notice, in the remaining month or whatever your notice period is, don't ask him to build features. Ask him to explain everything to the other people. And the other people should be told, hey, your focus should be on learning as much as possible. When you decide to pick a task, pick the task you are least familiar with so that you can learn. So that is how you should effectively insource. If you'd like me to validate that your company is making the right decisions and help you execute them, my consulting link is in the description. And if you found this useful and would like more insights, consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you.